Hi everybody, it's Rhiannon. Good morning, and how is everybody? I think if I could, I'd be giving everyone a hug, sending a virtual hug. I hope everyone is doing okay. To be honest, I'd love to come on as much as possible and just chat, and if I can help at all. I was saying yesterday if I can help with any bread baking inquiries. I know that people are struggling to get hold of flour and yeast, and I thought I'd come on today and chat about baking bread if you don't have any yeast. I did see in the supermarket this morning they did have a limited range of bread flour that was available, but still no yeast. And so if you are trying to make some bread at home and you don't have any yeast to rise it, then I thought I'd come on and give my couple of top tips for making breads that don't need any yeast or perhaps have very little yeast in them, and other methods that you can use. Some of them are a bit more long term. If you're watching, do say hi. I hope everyone is doing well. And as I say, if I can help, if you've bought bread flour recently and perhaps you're thinking, I want to start baking bread, I've had a lot of people like and follow my page recently. And if that means that you're looking to start baking bread at home, then welcome, and I'd love to help you with any questions you have. So do get in touch, either comment on the live or just let me know what you're baking at home and how it's going. So yeah, if you've got no or little yeast at home and you'd want a few tips on that, then I thought I'd start first of all. One of the breads you can bake quite easily is a soda bread. So no yeast in that, that's a quick bread, and it uses bicarbonate of soda as the rising agent. And as I say, it's a quick bread, so you mix all the ingredients together and pop it in the oven straight away, so you can have bread ready for lunch in, say, 20 minutes, half an hour. Really fantastic, and it will smell amazing. What a great treat, especially if you're at home. And also with making soda bread, you can use a mixture of flours, so don't worry if you don't have any bread flours. Hi, if you're just joining, I'm just talking about baking bread if you have no or little yeast, so just a couple of top tips. Do say hi if you're here. So you don't have to use, for soda bread, you don't have to use bread flour specifically. You could do, but you could either half and half it or use wholly plain flour. And also if you've got things like wholemeal, you're not sure about using them, chuck them all into the mix, I'd say. The only thing I'd say is if you've got rye flour, I would only use that to up 10 to 20% of your mixture. Rye doesn't have a lot of gluten, so it will make a very different bread, although if you can pop it into a tin, it will hold its shape. Bicarbonate of soda, you make a soda bread. You need to mix also, instead of water in a soda bread, you'll be using some kind of acidified dairy product. So that could just be yogurt mixed with milk, half and half, or it could be buttermilk, if you can get hold of buttermilk. Use that in your bread. You can also mix a teaspoon or two of vinegar into milk to acidify it, and then you need to do that so it reacts with the bicarbonate of soda to rise your bread. And also soda bread works really well with dairy alternatives, so soya or other dairy alternatives. So if you've got yogurt products that are non-dairy, you can use those to make your soda bread as well. It works really well. And you can also chuck lots of things in, like seeds, nuts, herbs, things like that. Things like grated carrot and apple as well works really well. Not only will it bulk out your bread, but nice flavours. So that was the first one, soda bread. If you've got no or little yeast and you want to bake some bread, then you could do that. If you've got a little bit of yeast and you want to work out how you can make it go a little bit further, the next method you could use is what is called the sponge and dough method. And this is how bakers always used to make bread before commercially available dried yeast was available. Can't get my words out today. Dried yeast, obviously we didn't always have in a tin like this. So what people used to do was save basically a portion of their dough from the day before, and then use it as the starter essentially for tomorrow's bake. So obviously it was unbaked dough, so the yeast would still be live in it, and if you kept it in a cold environment, so you could pop it in the fridge, that yeast, in the fridge, the yeast don't die, they'll just slow down their activity. So you can go ahead and use that dough the next day. Now what that does mean, a couple of tips there. First of all, there's not going to be as much yeast, it's not going to be as concentrated in that piece of dough, so your dough is going to take longer to rise. And also, you do need to remember to keep back a bit of your dough from your bake. So you can start that process off by mixing together, say, 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, and pop some yeast in, just a sprinkle. You literally only need 1 or 2 grams, not even that. Leave it to ferment on the counter overnight, and then you'll have your sponge, your pre-ferment. And then you would perhaps add all of that into a dough, and then you can make that dough and make your bread. But remember, before you bake that bread, to take out part of your dough, say a 50 to 100 gram piece of dough, and save it for tomorrow. And then lastly, you can think about making your own sourdough starter. So that is definitely the opposite of the soda bread. It's not quick at all, but the basis of making your own sourdough starter is to use the natural yeast that are available on the grains of your flour, the grains that you've ground up in to make flour, so wheat or rye. And basically, when you mix the flour and water together, you're encouraging those yeast to flourish and create your sourdough starter, and you create basically a little colony of yeast in your flour and water paste. Now that process does take kind of 5 to 7 days, and so it's not a quick response at all. But if you're thinking you're not going to get hold of yeast for a while, and you perhaps want to start making bread, starting your own sourdough starter, if you've got flour, is a great way to go. And actually, if you've got any wheat flour or rye flour, you can use that. So don't worry if you've only got plain flour. You can start a sourdough starter with that, and then you can adapt it once you've got bread flour to make bread. So that was just a couple of tips to making bread if you've got no or little yeast. Another option as well with the quick bread is to make things like flatbreads. I would be happy over the weekend to do a quick recipe for making flatbreads, because I think that's a really simple way of making bread as well that you can do at home. So I hope that was really helpful. I just want to come on each day and share a little tip. I'll try and come on as much as possible to share tips. I'm sure, like many of you, I'll have my family at home from the end of the week onwards, so it might be slightly less silent and a bit more chaos. But if I can answer any bread baking questions you have, please let me know. And also, if you want any more bread making tips, you can sign up for my top 5 bread making tips email, which I will put a link to in the comments. And also do come over and join my free group for home bread bakers, which is Bake Bread at Home. Also, I'll put a link in the comments as well. It would be lovely to see you over there. We do share lots of recipes, tips. I do troubleshooting of people's bread baking questions, and doing a community there. But if you are watching, it's been lovely to speak with you again today. I hope, as I say, you're all doing okay at home or at work if you're going in. I much appreciate many people still are. And if, as I say, if over the weekend or beyond you want to start baking bread at home and you've got any questions, just let me know. But otherwise, I will say bye for now, and do check out those links in the comments that I'll pop in a minute if you want any more bread baking support. Thanks, bye.